Our next speaker is Professor Graham Walker. He's a Professor of Irish Politics at Queen's University in Belfast, although he's originally from Pollokshaws in the south side of Glasgow. I think you get your PhD from Manchester, but studied in Toronto and various other places. Of particular interest to us, we're always talking about culture. Well, what is Rangers culture? Graham's written extensively on Rangers. He's edited books, got the Rangers for Me series, sermons and battle hymns about sport and culture in Scotland. He's done a history of the Ulster Unionist Party. He's written the book Intimate Strangers, which was about the relationships between Scotland and Ulster. And actually his first book's the one I enjoy most, is about Harry Midgley, who was the chairman of Linfield, but he was also a very active trade unionist and politician in Belfast. So Graham's going to talk about writing about Rangers.
Thanks very much, Mark. It's great to see so many of you. I was a wee bit worried that there was a few from the Subway Oil and they would be disappearing before the final bit of the day. This is my first conference. I've been a member of the Trust, since its inception, but actually this is the first time I've made it to a conference. And living in God's chosen province, you don't get back here as often as you would like to watch the team or attend events like this, so I'm really glad to be here today. I suppose it's drearily predictable that an academic should want to talk about books, but I think it is actually a good moment to try and take stock of the writing about Rangers. I have done a wee bit of this recently in terms of the edited books that some of you will know about, but also most recently the official biography which I've written with Ronnie Esplin. So today then I want to do a number of things. I want to give you a survey of some of the books about Rangers. Say something also about the experience and, I would have to say, the frustrations of writing the official biography, and then going on to say something about where we might go from here. In other words, what do we have to do to actually come up with a definitive history of the club? How might the fans help? How might this organisation, the Trust, help? What role should the club itself play? So these are some of the questions that I want to look at today. Now, the first issue then I want to look at is the literature that there is. And I think maybe the first thing to say is that the picture's a lot healthier now than it was about 10 or 15 years ago. Because certainly when I went into, or was used to get into bookshops 10 or so years ago, it was a very dispiriting experience. You would be confronted with shelffuls of books about Celtic, 2 or 3 on Hearts and Hibs in Aberdeen, and 1 each in Rangers and Third Lanark. And Third Lanark went out of business in 1967. So I think that's how dire it was. I mean, if I exaggerate, I do so only slightly. And at a time when Nick Hornby was making football writing fashionable, and when the market for serious football books was expanding significantly, where were the books in Rangers? Well, I'm glad to say that since then there have been a number of valuable publications. And if you go into the bookshops now, I think we just about hold our own, certainly with our old firm rivals. And more often than not, I think the historian Bill Murray, whom more later, venturing the opinion that Rangers fans would not join the fanzine revolution of the time, that the fans were just too used to turning their backs on anything that smacked of a radical or alternative kind of popular culture. Now, Bill was proved emphatically wrong by the appearance of Follow Follow, and Then I Ready, and Number 1. And let's not forget the one issue of World Shut Your Mouth, which was published at the end of 1987. I remember a match, and Fraser unfortunately has gone away, so I can't rub it in. It was a Rangers Dundee game. We beat them 2-0. It was going on about 16. And I got this fanzine from a guy outside the stadium at the end of the match. It was also a match which our current manager is fond of recalling, because as he put it, him and Durante turned Bomber brown so often that Bomber almost struck oil. And that of course had a happy ending, since Bomber actually joined us a few months later. But that fanzine actually, I think, was the first Rangers one. Maybe somebody will correct me. I don't know who was behind it. I'd love to know, because I was so pumped at its appearance I actually sent them money, and I was sending them ideas for articles and so on, but I never heard anything else. And this magazine never reappeared. However, at this juncture I think I would like to salute Grandmaster Suck for editing for so many years Follow, and of course more recently the Follow website, because until the recent slew of books started to appear in the shops, Follow was where the fans had a chance to bite back. This was where they debated the direction of the club, where they challenged the media's representation of the club. And the standard of writing, I think, in Follow, in the fanzine, was often very high, and not just when I was contributing under various nom de plumes. Nothing, I think, did more to raise the consciousness of the ordinary fan about the club, to question how it was being run, and to encourage more awareness of its history. Now, anyone, I think, with an ounce of objectivity would acknowledge from reading Follow through the years that Rangers fans could not just be lumped into one political category or dismissed as bigots. And I think Mark and others have also done us a great service in being genuinely cooperative with researchers who wanted genuinely to find out about how the fans tick and to find out what the club means to us. And I think in recent years this has borne fruit in some academic work. One example that I would give, and I know maybe most of you are not aware of it, is work by a sociologist at Aberdeen called Richard Giulianotti, who certainly came to Rangers with no great fondness, but has written academic articles which I think have fairly represented the views of the supporters. In his case, maybe it was the legendary Steve Bruce who was keeping an eye on him, I don't know. But the point is that if the fans cooperate and express their views honestly and reasonably, then I think it can pay dividends. And I know it might not seem that way to you very often, but in my view it does us no favours to button up resentments and to dismiss all non-Rangers supporting journalists, researchers, academics and so on as out to do a job on us. One or two might be, but the majority, I don't believe, are. If we talk to them and give them our side of the story, then I think they'll be less apt to run away with the other side of the story, which of course they get plentiful doses of in the media. Now, having praised Mark, let me upset him now, and no doubt a lot of others in the room, by citing the example of someone that I've just mentioned, Bill Murray. Now, when I read Bill's first book, The Old Firm, which came out in the mid-1980s, I was very dismayed by the extent to which it rested or relied on Celtic testimonies, and by the way that it depicted us. I got in touch with him, told him that what I thought of his book, and his reply was that nobody from Rangers or Rangers supporters that he had tried to question had actually cooperated with him. Now, I kept in touch with him, I tried to offer a more balanced picture, And I think if you read his second edition of the Old Firm, and if you read with an open mind his later work, The Old Firm, The New Age, and so on, then I think you have to, you'll no doubt still get irked by a lot of the criticism that he makes about Rangers, but there's no doubt that he has turned his critical faculties on Celtic to a very significant degree, and he has raised issues like separate schooling and so on, which many journalists and politicians, as we know in today's Scotland, are very good at avoiding. Now, just ask Celtic fans who have read Bill Murray's books what they think. I had one such fan at an academic conference denouncing Murray for, as he put it, shifting the focus of debate about the Old Firm. Well, what he meant was that Bill had the temerity in his later writings to bring in other issues apart from the one about Rangers signing practices for 70 odd years. Now, believe me, progress has been made, although it's still often an uphill struggle. But to return to the subject of recent books, I don't think I have to tell this audience what a great job Gary Rawlson did for us with the book The Gallant Pioneers, even though he left me out the acknowledgements. And at long last, the inspirational and the truly romantic story of our origins has been vividly told. And I think Gary's work has brought with it wonderful initiatives, such as the Founders Trail, restoration work in Founders gravestones, the plaque at Glasgow Green, where Moses McNeill had to go hours before the game to book a pitch in the earliest days. And there's no excuse now for lazy journalism that portrays our origins as the Harlan and Wolff Works team or the recreational wing of the Orange Order. And this book, I think, needs to be read by every sports journalist in the country. And let's not forget, however, how much Robert McElroy had done before Gary's book in bringing to light the humble origins of Rangers, and indeed the illuminating historical sidelights and snippets contained in every issue of the Rangers Historian, which he has edited now, I believe, for about 30 years. And Robert's book, The Complete Record, which he's co-authored, I think it's into its second edition at least, is of course utterly indispensable. Now, other recently published books which I think we should be very grateful for include Ian Duff's book about Ibrox, The Temple of Dreams, the same author's book about Rangers in Europe, and the biography of Archibald Leitch by that Wyong of football stadium history, Simon Inglis. And Rangers and their fans have even started to be considered with due regard to their historical and cultural context by novelists such as Alan Bissett, who in his latest book, Pac-Men, which is a story about a group of friends going to Manchester for the UEFA Cup final, and Ross Raisin in Waterline, a novel about an unemployed shipyard worker. Certainly, I think we will have to try to find alternative material in collections such as this. We may have to try and access the records of the SFA, the Scottish League, the Players' Union, bodies such as this. And I confess that I don't know the status of these records, or even whether they exist. But future historians will have to set about trying to find such material. I did not have the time to pursue these leads, but I'm throwing them out to you because I think that they are potentially fruitful. But I think there's a lot the ordinary fan can do.